Hey everybody, I just wanted to take a moment to let you know that this episode of Tabletop Babble is brought to you by Kobold Press. Kobold Press is making the Warlock Patreon right now. They have been for a while, and it is pumping out amazing 5th edition D&D content. I'm talking maps, monsters, character options, adventures in awesome dungeons, and so much more. They are making this material on a regular, ongoing basis. It is dark fantasy material, specifically made for the Midgard campaign setting from Kobold Press, but really you can use it with any campaign. Go check it out at patreon.com/koboldpress. I have been a member of the Warlock Patreon since it launched, since day one, and I have never been disappointed with the content. It's all at patreon.com/koboldpress. This is Tabletop Babble. I'm James Introcaso. Today on the show, I am talking with creator, streamer, artist, and just amazing person Satine Phoenix about her rise in Dungeons and Dragons. Satine has worked for Wizards of the Coast. She is a streamer and the owner and operator of Gilding, which does so many awesome D&D projects. She's also a published author. She's an artist. She's got so much going on. So here is my conversation with her. Prepare to be inspired. Okay, everybody, now I'm here with one of my favorite people. It is a super honor to have her on Tabletop Babble. Satine, for people who don't know, who are you and what do you do in tabletop role-playing games?
I'm just a girl who plays Dungeons and Dragons, went and got a big old tattoo on my neck and then travel the world preaching about it and making sure everyone else is playing. You know, that's all I do.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, just a small part of what you do.
Yeah. Basically, I am the founder of Gilding, a collaborative storytelling production studio, and the former community manager of Dungeons and Dragons.
Yeah, you've done so much. I think the first time I heard about you was during Charity 20.
Celebrity Charity 20?
Yeah. Let's talk about that a little bit, because that was sort of my first exposure to you. I'm a big Keith Baker fan. And
yeah,
so
me too.
I was like, oh, Keith Baker's involved. What's this all about? Tell me a little bit about that.
So I met Keith Baker in like 2008, 2009, and we became BFFs instantly because I always wanted to play monsters because I'm Filipino Sicilian. I definitely don't look like any specific thing. And when I played my first game with him, it was the first day I met him and the first game I played with him. He was like, you could play a goblin or a Medusa or a gnoll. And I was like, what are you talking about? And that was the coolest thing. And so I felt like I understood him very well. And we'd always wanted to work together after that. So I was like, well, let's try something really interesting. I was over at Meltdown Comics running games over there. And then there was a thing called Justin TV where they would record video and they would put it on the internet. Right? They're like, yeah, and it was all video game stuff. And I was like, oh, that's really cool. What if we did a Keith Baker adventure running Eberron, my favorite, and we had 4 different dungeon masters, and it's LA. We have a lot of like celebrities of all different kinds, and they all love playing D&D. We don't really see each other very much, so maybe this is the one time a year we all get together and we play Dungeons and Dragons. But then how do we reach the audience? So each person there has an audience. Like, we want to raise the most money for this charity. I found Reach Out and Read. It's a program. It's a childhood literacy program that gets it's a program for pediatricians to teach parents the importance of reading. So they send them home with a book, and it's for ages 6 months to 18 years old. It is so beautiful. People don't really talk about it. I'm trying to spread the word of it. So everything and I grew up in a library, so it was really like, this is my thing. Also creating, gamers for the next generation. Yeah, we were like, okay, let's figure this out. And mostly it was just so we could play. And then we put like one website, and it was 4 videos on one website, and it was the video and the audio for each table, which was also all in the same room. It was like the worst idea I ever had, but also the most interesting because from that, like Ramon Govea, George Rockwell, Matt Mercer, Travis Oates, they were all dungeon masters for this, and it was pretty phenomenal. From there, we learned that, okay, maybe one game at a time. This was back in 2010. Yeah, so the first one was a nightmare. Audio kept bleeding into another, and it was just too loud. But that's where it came from. It grew, and here we are today. Like, that's pretty much the path.
It was so ambitious, and to stream tabletop games in 2010, that was still when people were like, this is crazy, I would never watch somebody play like there were all sort of these naysayers and haters and stuff like that, and it just has grown into this incredible thing that has totally grown the community and really made D&D a big force. And you have been at the front of that. You've really helped to lead that charge, and not just in getting more people to play D&D, but also getting like a more diverse crowd of people to play D&D. There's definitely more women playing than ever before, more people of color playing than ever before, more people across the specters of gender and sexuality. Like, it is awesome to see this hobby grow into those spaces, because then all of those people bring their experiences to the game.
Yeah, well, see, I'm spoiled. I live in Los Angeles. I am mixed race, so and I'm from San Francisco, so all my friends have always been mixed race. So it's not strange to me to have other friends who are like me, very alternative lifestyles, alternative sexualities, different backgrounds. But I didn't realize how, like, I've been playing since I was 8, so I didn't know that women weren't playing until I ran the Meltdown D&D group, right? So women would come in, and most of the people there were professionals, people that work in the entertainment industry that don't have time to go to bars. They just were like, I want to play a game. My brother or my boyfriend in high school, they wouldn't let me play, and I want to play. And it was really interesting, all the stories, and it was very consistent, all the women that would come in. And they were like, look, I'm here because you are a woman and I feel safe with you here. And I didn't like, I had no idea because I don't think about that. I'm just such a go-getter. I'm like, oh, I'm doing this with you. Let's do it. So that was really remarkable. I don't know if I'm at the forefront, but I do believe in the artist mentality, right? So artists, we all learn from each other, and that's a crowd that I come from. You see something, it inspires you to do another thing. And then you see that person do something, and then another friend goes, ooh, I want to take that and I want to elaborate on it. And that is what I've experienced over the last 9 years is I had a stupid idea. And then somebody was like, oh, let's embellish that. And then, and then of course Critical Role is just like pow and did it real good from the beginning. But then even, you got Adventure Zone, the PAX guys. It's pretty phenomenal, the different routes, the spread of it all, and where people have taken the idea of we want a reach. I mean, if you go back to the 90s, right? You have the Dragonlance books. When I was playing in the 90s with my friends, we're like, dude, we should totally record a session and then we'll make a novel about it. It'd be super cool. And did we ever do that? No, but essentially that is what we're doing now.
I mean, you are so immersed in this sort of every single day, almost every hour of every day.
Yeah.
You're talking about Dungeons and Dragons. And so it's just fascinating to see how it's grown and what you're doing now. Let's talk a little bit about Gilding Light now. So Gilding Light is your company, and it has this artist mentality you're talking about at the forefront of it, right?
Yeah, because the whole idea is a lot of us, we spend so much time, like the last couple of years have been focusing on an idea of we got a live stream, we have to do this thing, and everyone's been doing it the same over and over. We don't give ourselves enough room to be creative. We know what works, we stick with that. And so this is a way to do smaller projects with friends because, having to stream every single Tuesday, that means I miss out on other things and it's very expensive. So I've figured a way to do the streams that I want, record them, and have time for my for friends.
Mhm.
So maybe that means I'm doing an improv short with one of my friends over a weekend, or I do, you have sirens and we shoot during the weekend, and then we do a side thing. So I'm just running a couple girls through an adventure, a little side adventure. And maybe that's only a half hour, so like really playing with it. I have a thing where in LA, actually our D&D community is pretty talented. You're an amazing storyteller, and being able to say, "Hey, let's go do something like on a Wednesday night. Let's go do something creative. Maybe it's you and I do like a side podcast that's just one episode." You know what I mean? Um,
Yeah.
it's the freedom of being creative with your friends in whatever form that takes. I have a friend I'm going to do a photo shoot story with, and it's really exploring storytelling in its many avenues. You do that in college, or I did that in art school. But I haven't really done that so much. And mostly it's a fear of doing it wrong, a fear of wasting time because our time is so precious. But in order to be a good storyteller, you have to kind of be fearless and take those chances. And I hear all the time all these new dungeon masters, they're like, "I don't know if I can't do the voice." I'm like, "Did you try? Did you practice? You're not going to be able to do it if you don't try or practice."
Hey, everybody, just wanted to take a quick break to let you know about our sponsor for this episode of Tabletop Babble. I'm talking about Elderwood Academy. Elderwood Academy are the makers of many fine gaming products that you can use right at your table. I'm talking about dice towers that look like amazing codexes, trays for your dice that roll up to look like awesome scroll cases. I'm talking about amazing spell book boxes, of which I have two, count them, two, that you can hold dice, cards, minis, pencils, and more. Custom inserts, a mirror you can draw on, plus amazing leather covers that you can emboss with all sorts of incredible designs. It's all customizable. It's all amazing. It's all over at elderwoodacademy.com/don't split. That's elderwoodacademy.com/don't split. Go check it out. Let's get back to the babble. It's funny, I think players in D&D, people who aren't dungeon masters, have that, or some of them at least have that mentality of like, I'm going to take this risk. I'm going to try this storytelling thing. I'm going to do something weird or do something unexpected or that kind of thing. And we, as creators, especially when you're doing it professionally, you get to that point where you're like, well, if I don't do this, will I lose my audience forever? Will I lose time here and that I should have spent over here doing this? And your life becomes wrapped up in it. And the people who are just sort of more casual, they're like, well, yeah, I'm just going to have fun, right? And so I do love to see people taking creative risks. And also, like you said, you're taking advantage of that community there in LA, right? There's so many creative people. And so it makes perfect sense that you're able to get out there and do really cool stuff in addition to the weekly content you're creating, right? Sirens of the Realms. Let's talk a little bit about that, because I think that is also it's a D&D stream, but it is unlike a lot of D&D streams for a lot of reasons. But talk to me a little bit about Sirens of the Realms and what it is and that sort of thing for the audience.
Imagine, if you will, an all-girl bard band on tour through Faerun. And that's how it started. It was one of those like stupid ideas. I was like on a road trip. I'm like, dude, wouldn't that be awesome? And you had this, and I know so many people who think bards are ridiculous, and I'm like, well, actually, they're not ridiculous. Let me show you why they're not ridiculous. Especially if you multi-class them. So I had a group of girls I put together. They're all entertainers, LA entertainers. And I wanted them to basically play My Little Pony and Gem. And like, I want to do that. Also, I wanted to explore the Forgotten Realms because I'm Eberron. And before that, I've always done homebrew, like since I was little. I don't actually remember playing in an actual system, like a world before I met Keith Baker, really.
Sure. Yeah. Yeah.
So I was like, okay, how do I do this where it's a learning experience for me? It's fun for everybody else. I am a huge proponent on gimmicks. I know that sounds ridiculous, but it feeds creativity. Like all of a sudden you have these cosplayers and singers and entertainers who get dressed up and they write songs during their game. And that's like, I don't know, it's just so sparkly. And it was an all-girl band, but okay, so I don't like leaving people out. It really bothers me to think that this is exclusive, so blah blah blah. Jason Charles Miller is one of the most fun people to play with in the whole world, and he's very much, yeah, okay, we're doing the thing. So it hurt my feelings for me to have created an all girl anything. So I was like, so would you be a siren bro? Yeah, and so it's the inclusive, it's we are dynamic, we have a range of ethnicities and talents, not everybody sings. Cynthia Marie is a professional dancer. She's also, like, an amazing choreographer, so I wanted to show that bards are more than musicians, and she does a thing where she's a lava fire genasi, because I like to take things and then tweak it a little bit, and she goes in and she runs in and slides on her knees and takes thunder wave, but we turned it into heat wave because lava.
Right. That's awesome.
Yeah, I am very blessed. We've repackaged it, reformed it, and it's called The Sirens now. So we just wrapped season 3 of Sirens of the Realms, and then we're going to launch season 1 of The Sirens at the Descent.
Nice. That is awesome. And it is such a great crew. It is so surprising what they are able to do during the show. That when the songs come out and you're like, this is so good. Like it's the kind of thing that you think has been written weeks beforehand.
No. Oh my God. So Kelly Lynn D'Angelo is one of my, like, super secret weapons. And I say that because it's just funny to say. But she is an improv musician, and she comes up, she's like, say a word. And I'm like, okay. And I throw a word at her, and she'll make a whole song about it on the spot. And it blows my mind. Like, she's an amazing writer anyway. She does TV writing and other kinds of writing. But her being able to come up with stuff while we're live, but also have the courage, right? Because that's the other thing. I've been storytelling for a long time. Singing makes my knees crumble. I am so embarrassed, and that's, like, pretty much the only time you'll see me actually sweat and get embarrassed. Try it sometime. Singing is so vulnerable, like, really vulnerable, and the fact that they can come up, like, maybe they'll write it that morning or the night before, or they'll write it while they're gaming, like, oh, but, yeah, it blows my mind.
It's just so impressive, and you as a group are all very cohesive, and but it just looks like you're having fun too. Like that's a huge thing for me, is when I'm watching a show and people like look like, oh yeah, all of these people would play together and have this much fun off camera too. And I feel like there would still be cosplay, there would still be music, you know what I mean? Like it's just like, hey, we also just have these cameras there and know how to stream, and that is so much fun, and you make it look much easier than I know it is. It is a lot of work.
It takes a long time to get people to bond, and I'm sorry to say, but it takes a long time to get girls to bond. And I don't know if that's a cultural thing, but having all of us have already known each other, and then just the fact that we're all just so darn appreciative that we get to spend time together, because life is so busy. So we all come from whatever histories we come from. We have our super hard days and our lighter days, and we get to the game table and we're like, this is our mini vacation. These people I trust. We've had lots of conversations. We've succeeded together. We've failed together. We've hurt each other's feelings. We talked about it. We got through it. And that's, I think, the most interesting thing, because building friendships is not easy. It's very hard. And it's hard to be honest with one another. And there was something magical that happened this season that I can't believe. We're on a text message every day. We're on a group, and we send each other love. We encourage each other. All of their characters have something they're struggling with, and maybe that's an expression of what's going on inside of them personally, or it's just them exploring character work. But the fact that they all pay attention to what each other is doing and saying and feeling, and then, like, one of the girls was doing something, maybe it was Kelly, and Christina wrote a song about her to lift her up, to make sure that she knew that she was worth it. She just posted it on her Twitter today. It's Kelly's birthday today. So, yeah, it's like one of those things. And there was a song that Kelly wrote, Light at the End of the Tunnel. And that song, like, I had some really dark days in the last 4 months, 5 months, and I would like, I don't know if they understand how important they are to me. Like, I wanna cry every time I think about my sirens, because it's not just a show at all. Like, they're my sisters, they're my bro. It's a
Mhm. That's beautiful.
Yeah.
That's great, and that's how we feel about our D&D groups, many of us in real life. They're our best friends, they're our family. And so that's when you watch that show, you get that feeling from that. And I think it plays into that courage you were talking about, you giving each other courage to go try things and experiment and be those artists, which is huge. If it all it takes is one person to say, this is stupid, or I'm not doing this, to make everybody else feel like it's stupid.
That's so real. That's really true, and that's been a question that comes up a lot in a lot of the different panels I do. It's what happens when we have a naysayer in the group?
Mhm.
And it's like any friends group, you have to be honest with each other. And I know we're nerds. We don't really like confrontation, and by me saying that, I hate confrontation. Actually, it makes my stomach hurt.
Sure,
Um,
sure.
but you kind of have to, and you have to have the courage to say what is wrong and to be honest with one another and say, okay, well, it's not working here, but there are many tables it could work for you. Like maybe your unhappiness here will be happy somewhere else. And maybe there's somebody on another table who's having a bad time. And then by being at your table, that's the perfect table for them. So being able to understand that it's not the end of the world, that this group isn't working, and it does hurt your feelings. It feels like a breakup, you know? And it just, things don't always work out the way you intend, especially when you see a group like the Sirens or Girls Guts Glory, and you're like, oh, they get along perfectly. And it's like, you can't be those people. You are your own group. And just like we had to explore who we are, you need to figure out how you function as your group and how to say it's time to move on. It hurts.
Yeah. I mean, that's a huge part of the game, right? Is the communication and checking in with your players and knowing where everybody's standing and that sort of thing. And it sort of brings me to another thing that I love that you have done. It started sort of, I guess, with GM tips, although you were giving advice about running games before even that, when when you took over GM tips for Matt Mercer. And you've been through various series and things giving advice since. Now on Gilding Light, the Storyteller's Guide, right, is something that we're going to see more of, about world building and that sort of thing. So like, that is, your advice is always so it's always framed in a positive way, never in like a don't do that, but a hey, how about this is what's going to be good, this is what's healthy, this is what's yada yada. And even when you're faced with these problems, like you were just saying, that negative person at the table, I think, is a big problem. And most people would just say like, kick them out, right? But the way you have said, like, you got to talk to that person and see like there's a table that's right for them. That's a totally different way of thinking about that, and a way that is positive, because it also gives you hope for that person that like they're going to find somewhere and they're going to have fun. And it's not a mean thing, it's a kindness to have this conversation for me and everybody at the table, including that person. So how do you approach when people ask you for advice and that sort of thing? What are you drawing on and what are you thinking about? I know that's sort of very
So,
broad.
no, it is broad, but like, I almost died in 2015. I got in a car accident and it was really hard. I had brain damage for a very long time. I had no imagination for 6 months. I couldn't function. It was hard to put words together. And that really gave my life a different perspective than I already had. So, I look at it as I'll be 39 in May, and I look at the timeline of life. I kind of have to step back. This is a good thing for dungeon masters to do. You step back, you see the overall story that you're going to partake in, and you realize where you or where your character exists in that timeline. And then you have to think about what is the history of that character and where did they come from in order to continue in the story forward, right? Well, when I was a kid, I was the school nerd. People would invite me to the parties and then make fun of me until I cried and ran home. And that was something that happened a lot. And I got, garbage canned, food thrown at me, songs written about me. I know what it's like when people treat you unfairly. Go into my 20s, I made some decisions that were really good for me because I had to take back my sexuality and all that. But people don't understand why I did the things that I did in my 20s. But it was a choice I made. The consequence of that is I was shunned. People objectified me. I know what it feels like to be ostracized. I know what it feels like for people to objectify and look at you like you're not a human being. So 2019, 2018, I now have a different perspective on people. I'm very lucky, but I've also just been lucky that people see my passion for what I do, and I do not take anything for granted. Not one moment in my life. I wake up last year when I was a community manager, I woke up every day in like happy tears. Like I believe, can't I can't believe it, And it sounds ridiculous, but like I taste every part of the air around me. So when people are like, "Oh, it's easy for you to understand like compassion," it's like, and you're not reactive, but blah blah blah. It's like, you know what? Sometimes, and maybe this is a older lady wisdom thing, you have to stop, you take a breath, you don't react. And maybe I do react, but then I have to check myself and then admit, oh, I was kind of a jerk. And I do that. That's the real thing, but it does take practice. So being able to see something and say, oh man, that guy doesn't fit here. He needs to get kicked out. It's like, well, maybe he's having a hard time at home or he's having a hard time at work. What is his reality or her reality or their reality that make them like that here? And then understand, okay, let's not ridicule that person. Let's not shame that person because I know how horrible that feels to be shamed and ridiculed and judged. So that is a very long roundabout way to answer your long roundabout question.
No, I mean, that got so much deeper than I thought. And I love that. I think listening is a big thing, right? Obviously, you have learned how to be a great listener, and you have a lot of empathy for people, which I think is great. The number of people that I see you interact with in person, online, that are saying things like, "Hey, you really have changed my life in this way because of all of the things you do." And your appreciation for those words is so genuine. And the fact that you take the time to talk to everybody, when I know every time you click on that Twitter icon, you've got 99 plus on your notifications and stuff, right? Like,
are you looking? I don't know if you're looking. I get in trouble. Like my friends make fun of me in a fun way about all my emails and my notifications. They're like, Jesus. Yeah, well, it's just the fact that there's a whole lot of us in our industry, and we all have something beautiful to offer. And the fact that anybody's like, Satine, you're great. Like that is energy they didn't have to shoot my way. They could have given that to anybody else. And so, yeah, I want to hold it. I want to catch it. I want to hold it. I want to hug them, and I want them to know that it's not overlooked. It's not passed by like, oh geez, thanks, whatever. No, I try to look every time I see, like today the Washington Post article came up, right? Oh my God, just my heart. And dozen followers. I'll hover over them, I'll take a glance. I mean, I don't have a lot of time, but if I can just take a glance on who they are, see their names, like is their name match their tag? That's interesting to me when they have a different name and they have where did they pick that from? Like all these things go through my head, like who is this person? And then, yeah, I have to move on because I have to do my life thing. But I try to see everybody.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and I really want to talk more about this Washington Post article. So we're talking on the day. We're recording on the day this Washington Post article came out, and it's called "How Dungeons and Dragons Somehow Became More Popular Than Ever." And there are all kinds of people quoted and interviewed here, and you are one of the people. And they talk a little bit about you starting the largest D&D meetup group, and they quote you about saying, gone are the days of you can't find a group. Now it's what style of game do I want? This is huge. This is so huge.
Oh my God, don't cry, Satine. I can't believe it.
Mm-hmm.
I can't.
Yeah.
It's phenomenal. I was blown away last year when Idle Champions is like, would you like your childhood character to be on Idle Champions? I was like, oh my God. And that was a big step, and people were seeing that. And now this article, I've spent the last 10 years just wanting to facilitate an environment where people wanted to play together. I'm doing a world tour, and it's not about me. It's actually about each community and building and grabbing all their people and rallying and all that. And the Meltdown community was beautiful. I mean, we had twice a week, and then sometimes I would do a pancake breakfast, and I'd make all the bacon. My eyes would be swollen from all the bacon smoke. That's all. All I wanted to do was provide a home for people to play in. And now this Washington Post article it featured so many kinds of people. It featured so many kinds of games and podcasts and from all over the world. It talked about the global community of Dungeons and Dragons and in role-playing games in general, right? Because it's bigger than D&D. I mean,
yeah.
I have the tattoo, so really I'd only play D&D. But it is so big now, and that was a moment. It's a moment in time. That article is a moment in time, but it exemplifies what we've all had a passion for, which is each other.
Yeah. Yeah, it really does. And one thing that I see you doing a lot is you use your various platforms to lift up other people as well, to bring in, on GM tips, you were always bringing on people to have them give advice and that sort of thing. And you're constantly praising others, talking about others. You're bringing on guests on to Sirens and everything. So why is it that you are do so much to lift up others as well as all of the 9 billion creative things you're doing?
Yeah, I think I have ADHD or H8. I don't know, a hyperactive creative.
Oh,
I don't know.
Yeah.
I firmly believe that we are better because of one another. So I learned so much from Keith Baker, just listening to him tell stories, and all the other dungeon masters I played with, all the players I played with. So it's important to me. I like being the center of attention. I'm an exhibitionist. I'm an entertainer, but I am nothing without the people around me. I don't want to be the solo face of a thing. I want to be me and my friends, because it's so much more interesting when you see people creating together. For GM tips, well, Matt is phenomenal. Actually, he could talk by himself for days. I would watch that. But for this, it's important that people see, I don't know, a more common thing, which is that we are all children. And as kids, from really young ages, we learn by watching and then by doing. We mimic our parents. We mimic that. Okay, turns out we never stop.
Yes.
We never stop.
Yes.
So for me, I guess I don't even know what happened with my follower numbers that I don't really pay attention to. Really, it's about these are the people who inspire me, and then if I can inspire them, and then we just keep going back and forth. It's this I don't know, a Dragon Ball Z buildup of energy, and it's creative energy, and then it kind of zaps one person, they're in inspired, and it zaps another person, they're inspired, and then they build something, and I'm like, oh my God, that inspires me, and then I get zapped, and I don't know if that's a real answer, but that is my answer. Is we all are better because of each other.
It's just this whole mentality of being better together and lifting each other up, and it all applies across the board to your gameplay, right? Like when you go sit down to play, everybody should support each other and that sort of thing. But it's also just a great way to live your life.
Yeah, I'm thinking about it now. I was a part of a youth group. I did a lot of choir when I was like in junior high and martial arts. Now I think about it, I did a lot of stage theater in high school. And my youth group was definitely like I would do talks in front of like 200 people and would organize a lot of charity work and stuff like that. And so I guess maybe that was ingrained. Maybe that was just something that I never really questioned before.
Mhm.
Huh. There you go. I learned something today.
Well, yeah, I mean, we all benefit from that, so that's great. I'm glad that you were part of that. So you interact, right, with the D&D community a lot, with the role-playing game community a lot. You've seen sort of what they're capable of charity-wise and that sort of thing. And what do you think you've learned? And I'm sure you've also seen the terrible dark side of the D&D community as well, as we all have. So what sort of experiences do you take away from the community, and how have you seen it change, over the years now that more people than ever are playing?
I've learned to follow my instincts
Mm-hmm.
and follow the light, which is why I named it Gilding Light. It's about the light that we shine on each other that really like pulls us forward, that builds us up. And I don't know, there's just that positivity. Like I don't even know what to call it except for light. So, I learned to follow the light, and there's a lot of noise on the internet. And I actually got in trouble because a lot of people are like, because you don't say anything, then that means that you support blah blah blah. I'm like, actually, that's not the case. That is
Right.
not true. But I do have blinders on
Mm-hmm.
because I don't wear people's judgment very well. So, my what I've learned is follow the light, follow your passion, follow the people around you that you want to, the groups you want to be a part of. Be the light you want to see in the world. But I only know that because I come from a real dark place, and I don't want people to think that I'm just this like super happy-go-lucky girl. Like I wake up, I am severely depressed. I go through a lot. I have really bad PTSD, super bad. And it is not easy. When you see me outside, it's because I've ramped my energy up and I was like, okay, that means I pried myself off the floor in order to do that. And that I really want people to know that it's not all sparkles in my reality, but it does make the light so much more beautiful and really make me like want to just focus on that.
Yeah. That is huge. And it is huge for people to know too, because we can have this idea that the people we admire, right, that they have it all together, they know what they're doing,
Nope.
right?
It's the first thing you learn as a kid. You're like, my parents actually have no idea what they're doing.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. I still think, right? I'm in my 30s, and I still think whenever one of my friends that I've known for a long time is having a kid, I'm like, you don't know what you're doing. And I'm like, oh my God, no one knows what they're doing. No one ever
No.
knows.
Yeah, but the good thing is that we are part of a community that can learn from each other.
Mhm.
And what I have seen, and I'm so proud. Can I just say that I'm proud? Is that
Yes.
an ego thing? I am super proud of our community because they have, like 4 years ago, I definitely was not welcome in a lot of spheres, but a lot of people did welcome me. And anytime somebody said something bad, 5 other people would jump in and like, "Are you serious? That's ridiculous." And we are so good, and I hope that people start doing this.
Mhm.
They positive reinforcement. I know it sounds ridiculous. I learned this with my dog. I did dog training. I learned how to talk to my dog, and I'm
Mhm.
not comparing people to dogs at all. Do not think that I'm doing that. But what I did learn was encouraging good behavior
Right.
and really focusing on that because we respond to that.
Mhm.
You don't beat your kid. I don't know what. Actually, I don't have any kids, so
Sure, but
I
yeah.
assume you're really not supposed to because I don't like getting beat up. So,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
yeah, positive reinforcement
Mhm.
to the community, listening, asking the community questions. This is like, um, nonviolent communication, right? You hear
Right.
somebody is a troll, the troll,
Hmm.
like whatever that means. They're like, "Hey, I don't like this," and blah blah blah. It's like, okay, well, I'm not going to yell back at you because that's only going to feed it. But let me try to understand where you're coming from.
Right. Right. Yeah. And that if somebody is coming at you, all the way at a 10, if you come in at them at a 2 and you're like, hey, I just like, let's actually talk about this, you can bring them down. And then you can
Yeah.
have a real conversation and get to whatever the heart of the actual issue is. Right.
Yeah, or at least agreeing to disagree, which is a big important thing that people don't do because of social media, everyone has a platform, and instead of people having conversations, they all talk at each other. And, it's a very lonely life, and I don't wanna be lonely.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Exactly. And I think it's so true, and one of the things that I see a lot in the community are people who I know are friends disagreeing, but in a way that it's a discussion, right? In a
Yeah,
way that it is not yelling at each other, it's not that sort of thing. And it's great because it starts about something dumb. It can be as simple as like uh should encounters be balanced or not, right? And you have that, but then those people can then, because they know how to talk about that, they can talk about more important stuff as it goes along and things that really matter to them. So not that
and
encounter
that's how
balance
we learn.
doesn't matter to people, but I mean, if you're me, there's no such thing as encounter balance. It just happens.
Me too.
I think I actually learned that on an episode of GM Tips from you. So when it like blew my mind, I was like, that's right. There is no encounter balance. Like there's just this. Anyway, we'll have to get into that another time. But this has been a real treat for
Thanks.
me, and I really do think the world of you. I've admired you since you've come onto this scene, and I think that everything you have done and everything you're continuing to do is not just bringing more people into the community. It's making all of us think about how we can change the game and how we can be more creative, be more welcoming, and be more like Satine, and that's just
Compassionate.
yeah, exactly.
Compassionate community builds community.
Exactly. So, thank you. So if people want to check out what you're doing, where should they go? What should they do?
I'm at Satine Phoenix on pretty much everything. And there's gildinglight.tv. If you want to see all the Gilding Light stuff, there's also at Gilding Light on the socials.
And really, thank you so much for coming on. I really, really appreciate it. Hey, that was a great chat with Satine Phoenix. Thank you so much for coming on the show. People, if you want to support the show financially, we could really use your help. We're paying for hosting fees and all kinds of other stuff. Head on over to patreon.com/Introcaso. That's patreon.com/Introcaso. And you can help determine all kinds of upcoming topics and other awesome stuff about the show. Plus, I'm giving out content and I'm giving monthly chats, so go check it out. There's all kinds of great rewards, and it really helps support all of this content I'm giving to you out there on the internet. Also, if you can't support the show financially, or you can and you still want to help out, head on over to iTunes and leave us a 5-star review. It really, really helps us. I can't stress this enough. And if you leave a 5-star review, I will read it out loud and credit the person who left it. You can make me say anything you want, but more than that, you'll help others find the show, even those who aren't using iTunes as a podcatcher app. Odds are their podcatcher app is using iTunes algorithms to rate and recommend podcasts. So please do that for me. I would really appreciate it. All right, people, you can find me on Twitter at James Introcaso and at worldbuilderblog.com. Tabletop Babble is a show on the Don't Split the Podcast Network. Thanks to Rudy Basso for founding with me. Our theme music, which you're listening to right now, was provided by Battle Bards. Don't forget, RPGs are like sex. Hey everybody, before we go, I just wanted to let you know that this episode of Tabletop Babble was brought to you by D&D Beyond. D&D Beyond are the official digital rule set for Dungeons and Dragons. They have a lot of awesome things going on. You can go check it out for free, start building characters, see what it's like using the basic rules, and you'll see, wow, this is a really powerful tool. What's more than that, though, they have apps, so if you buy the books, you can take them with you on any digital device, save your spine some stress, and they have lots of awesome free content they're putting out, like articles by James J. Hake and videos by Todd Kenrick. Odds are you have seen both of these making their way around the internet. You should check it out. I have even written some pieces for D&D Beyond. It is all about how you can homebrew stuff. So go check it out at dndbeyond.com and experience the digital world of Dungeons and Dragons.